Hey skiers, I'm Jeff from skiessentials.com.
And I'm Bob. How's it going?
Bob and I are here today to do another 2025 ski comparison, starting with this video, and I think continuing for the next two videos, we will be trending narrower.
Yep, which is a departure from our big ski movement lately.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time with those big skis. These are Mid-80. I still call them all-mountain skis, but I would say we're kind of like blurring the lines between frontside and all-mountain, which will kind of be a theme of this whole conversation.
Yeah, and it's really interesting to kind of look at the ends here, where your Redster Q98 at 84 underfoot is the widest of the Redster line.
Right,
and then your
that's the
Blaze
narrowest.
86 is the narrowest of a Blaze line.
Yeah, or Ranger.
Yeah.
Same is true with
Yep.
Ranger. Same is true with Core.
Yeah.
Maverick.
Right. We're either on like the widest of the front side or the narrowest of the free ride. So I think your call of them still being all mountain skis is still right on the money.
Yeah, I agree. And this one is a little different. We've been doing a lot of the Slarvy to Carvy progression. This one's really just kind of on trail to off trail. So if anything, you could say more backwards than what we've been doing, but I don't think it's that cut and dry. It's really more on trail, off trail. There's going to be different characteristics among them.
Yeah.
And I would say there aren't many Slarvy skis up here, period.
Right.
So like that word just doesn't really like apply as well.
Yeah, no, totally.
Last thing I'll say is that the range here is 84 underfoot to 87 underfoot, and apparently no one makes a ski that's 83 underfoot.
Yeah, and the one caveat here is this Maverick 86, which is 88.
It says it's 86. The title is 86, so it's here.
Yeah.
All right, are you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, so we're gonna start with this Redster Q9.8. Here, I'll give you the one without bindings. Cool ski to start with. It's poplar and ash wood core, single sheet of Titanal in here, and then we get the RevoShock S system. This is the steel RevoShock as opposed to the carbon RevoShock that we'll see there in the 7.8. These skis do share the same footprint, the 9.8 and the 7.8, just different construction. It's going to be kind of interesting going through this with some skis including bindings and some skis not, but we are going to look at weight. We'll also look at price too, because I think price is a big part of this conversation.
We get a huge range here. I think that's why it's important.
Like $1,000 difference between the most expensive ski or more if you were like looking at like this with a binding that is astronomically high. So anyways, I want to look at it with the binding too here, but 2,400 and say 40 grams without the binding. This is one of the heavier skis up here. Yeah, 3,410 with the binding. It's a nice binding, this, X12 on here.
The X12.
I like the way that binding works. And then looking at the shape here, this is mostly a frontside shape. It's just a wide frontside shape. There's really not much rocker in the tip or tail, but there's good camber, good camber underfoot here. It's not like crazy high camber. You know, I think like if you had really high camber in this ski, it would feel way too aggressive.
Yeah.
And I don't think these are hard to ski by any means.
No.
Like pretty approachable even for like an athletic intermediate, as long as you have reasonably good technique. They're pretty stiff. I think if you like picked one up off a wall and hand flexed it, you might be like, that's a bit of an animal, but it's not that crazy.
It's just the turn shape, the shorter radius that helps and the wider shovel.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean you're definitely looking at, and because it's the wider version of the Redster series, it definitely has that race room influence.
Totally.
So yeah, you're going to feel like it's pretty burly.
We're going to see some really similar turn radii for a while.
Yeah.
To start this video. This one is 14.4 meters in this 173, and we're 84.5 millimeters underfoot. And $1,049.95 for this ski and a binding, which is not that bad.
No, especially that, like you said, that nice X12, and that's another difference between the 7.8 is you do get the upgraded binding.
Yeah, so you could call it an $800 ski with a $250 binding, or even a $750 ski with a $300 binding.
Yeah.
But anyways, for performance, I've always thought this ski is just exceptionally smooth for this category. It has a nice mix of feeling powerful and aggressive, but not like overly precise. You know, if you ski it back to back with narrower Redsters, like, I mean, the X9S is the one that comes to mind first, which isn't fair because that one's so narrow.
Yeah.
But there is like a stark contrast between those narrower skis, not just Redsters, but narrower Redsters, and then this ski. This ski is far more forgiving, but it still strikes like a really, really nice level of performance, in my opinion.
I found that it is extraordinarily happy in that 14.5 meter turn radius.
Yeah, it doesn't like to do that much outside of it.
No, it loves to link that S-shaped carved turn, and it does that with a nice platform underfoot better than most.
Yeah, it's quite similar to the next, well, at least the next ski, but really the first few that we're going to talk about. But I do agree, and with that, I would say that it's arguably kind of the better carver of that group over there.
Yeah.
While having some limitations outside of that carving format.
Yeah, I just think it's like it's planted on the snow. Like it is hooked in tip to tail.
Yeah, it's really smooth. And like, you know, I start to feel different on snow feel, especially here from Wingman.
Yeah.
And also from Peregrine there. They're just a little bit more like zippy.
Yeah.
A little bit more pep out of the turn, where this is just, it's just smooth. It's damp and smooth.
Yeah, and you know, that weight definitely keeps it really in the snow. And with that width, it's amazing how much, you know, how much depth in the carve you can get with a wider ski, especially if the snow gets just a little bit soft.
Totally, yeah.
This is a new Fischer Curv GT 85. This thing's pretty cool. It did replace that RC 186 that we really enjoyed for a long time because it was one of the smoothest and most powerful skis out there. So on one hand, it's kind of sad to see that beast go away. They have replaced it just with a slightly turnier version. They haven't really done a whole lot in taking down kind of the beef or the strength. They just kind of changed the shape more than anything else. It's still an extraordinarily strong ski.
Yeah.
But we are built with a beechwood core and 2 sheets of metal. We still get a thick layer of metal in there as well. So that does carry forward from the RC 186. And then you've got yours with the binding there on the scale at 3,270 grams. This is a little bit different of a binding system structure. We'll see the same binding here on this. And then the next two Elans, I believe.
Yeah, and I was going to mention it back with the Atomic, but I kind of think that Redster Q 9.8 might be the heaviest ski up here.
Yeah.
Which is reflected in its on snow feel for sure. And we're going to see like a big change in weight through the next few skis.
Yeah. These feel, like you were saying, just slightly livelier. You know, you're getting that slightly shorter turn than in the 86 GT, but similar to what we see in 15 meters here in the 175. So it does have, you know, kind of, like you were saying, similar turn shapes throughout these first few, but a little bit more energy, a little bit more pep out of this curve because it is a little bit more flexible.
Yeah, you can definitely feel it hand flexing it.
Yeah. So, you know, it's not quite like that super hard charger that we saw. It's definitely more of an across the fall line, rounder turn ski. Little dip in price here, $949.99, so $100 less than your Atomic. And I think that most of that's reflected in the binding and then maybe a little bit in the design technology, but it's not, it's a different type of performance. And I also think this kind of opens up a little bit more versatility than your Redster over there, just because it's a little bit more mobile.
Yeah, it's a lot different than the Ranger 84 over there.
Yeah, that's
you know,
for
we
sure.
got two Fischers up here, and there's a reason they're so far apart. But I agree. I actually, there's point of view footage of it, but I skied that ski during our ski test.
Yep.
Because the reps were getting bummed out that no one was skiing their mid-80 skis because it was like a full-on powder day.
Yeah.
So I took one for the team, and I think I actually skied the Steadfast too. And I did really well.
Yeah.
I just skied like gondolier, but there was a lot of fresh snow, and some skis in this category can feel a little kind of catchy.
Yep.
And that one, I thought handled it quite nicely. Wouldn't be my first choice on a powder day, but if you love skis like this and you're wondering if it's going to just be miserable on a day like that, then it's not.
Not so bad.
Yeah.
You know, a little bit more of that positive camber. It's funny, in this wall versus the other one, you know, everything that we've done wider, we talked a lot more about rocker. In this one, we're going to talk more about camber. So kind of the length and the height of the camber really stand out, and this ski is a little bit more, and so they're building that pep into the ski through that camber profile, which is pretty cool. But yeah, pretty much true tip to tail camber on this ski, nothing too crazy, and just, yeah, really smooth and stable overall, with a little bit more energy than we saw in that RC1 86, and more so than in that Atomic there. But definitely psyched to see these new curves come through from Fischer for this year.
It's cool. What was what do they call the radius? Triple something? Triple E?
Yeah, it's their version of
E
Volkl's,
triple radius?
Yeah, Volkl's
So it's like
3D.
straighter cut through the tips and tails?
Yeah.
And I think that adds a lot of that soft snow capability.
Yeah.
And I feel like this has some of that too. I'm
Yeah.
going to give you that one with the binding. Excuse me. This is the Wingman 86 Black Edition. We've got two Wingmen to talk about for the next two skis. This is the top of the line, of course, kind of all the Black Edition skis are. I'm actually surprised at that.
It's the 184 too, so this is the proper length.
Thank you. That's adding a lot to that.
Yeah.
I think if we had a comparable length to these first two, we would see it lighter. It is 3,300 grams, but as Bob pointed out, this one's pretty long. Tube light wood core in these skis, like we see in just about all Elan skis now. And then we get those carbon rods, and we get carbon line technology as well. That's kind of that asymmetrical application of carbon. These basically get one extra sheet of carbon compared to the next ski that we're going to talk about. And it is an extremely energetic ski, you know, as we kind of go through these, and we started with a ski that feels very smooth and damp and then got a little bit more energy. This kind of takes that energy and just runs with it. It's got so much, but as has become, I think, well known and still impressive from Elan, is that it's still relatively damp from those carbon rods.
Yeah.
It's not quite the same as a ski that's got a lot of metal in it, like those first two, but pretty darn good. You see it in that flex pattern, the amount of energy. I would say this one's even snappier than that Fischer that you were just flexing.
Yeah.
So kind of just continuing to move in that direction. And then I think they do a really good job with the shape of these skis. This might be the most rocker that we see, at least until we're like Mirus Core or M-Pro or something like that. But there's a good amount of tip rocker up here. And what they do is they kind of counter that by not putting any early taper in it. So if you looked at this right next to a Ripstick 88, that's like the big difference, is the extended side cut, and that's where you get really long, consistent edge contact and thus really good edge grip. And then similar in the tail, there's quite a bit of tail rocker for length. It's just not, there's like no splay.
Right.
So you're still gonna get really good edge contact if you're up on a high edge angle. This one's 86 underfoot, one of the wider skis up here, 17.4 meter radius. Again, this one's like kind of long. I don't think it skis like it has a longer turn radius. I find they come across the fall line with a lot of zest and eagerness.
Yeah, and vigor, like it's like
a
very aggressive across the fall line feel.
Yeah, totally. And they're really fun to ski. I've always really enjoyed them. You've always wanted a Ripstick 88 Black Edition, and this is the closest thing you can get. And it's pretty close.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit more on-trail oriented.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely feel the stiffness, especially in the tail. If you're looking for some type of all-mountain performance, like it's definitely takes some work.
It doesn't ski like a ripstick.
No.
It's like the mogul and tree stuff. That's where it gets a little challenging
tough.
on this ski.
Yeah.
It can do it. And I would say it's easier than Redster,
Yeah, I would say so too.
but not like nowhere near skis over there.
No, still firmly entrenched in an on-piste format, just
Yep.
wider and slightly rockered.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then you can probably go through this next ski.
1,099 on that one.
Oh, thank you.
I don't think you mentioned that, but
No, I didn't, and that's a perfect segue because you drop $100
Yeah.
to this ski.
and really what you're really only just losing that additional laminate of carbon on the top. The same construction, tube light wood core, Amphibio True Line technology, and that is the other thing is you do get that Amphibio rocker profile, so more camber on the inside edge, more rocker on the outside. We talk about it with ripstick, and it's funny because it works so well in softer snow at keeping the
Yeah.
ski smooth. It's impressive how well it works in firm snow too.
Yeah.
You just feel like that it's such a cohesive unit that they're,
What I find is really interesting is it's so subtle on these skis
Yeah.
that it's like kind of hard to see. Like on ripsticks, it's so obvious and you
Yeah.
can like kind of show it on camera. These, you really have to look at it closely,
Yeah.
but it is there.
it like slightly mirrors the angle of the True Line construction.
Yeah.
So just a little bit more rocker on that outside edge, but it does feel like it tracks very nicely and very, very predictably. I've always felt like this Wingman CTI was like one of the fastest, most slipperiest feeling skis out there. Like
Yeah.
how quickly it engages into the turn and just shoots you right through to
Yeah.
the tail. Like you do have to be ready for this thing.
Yep.
It's a good thing it has that tail rocker that you showed on that black edition there, Jeff, because if this were like flat tail like your Redster, it would just hook in.
Yeah. Well,
and-
same with
and-
Black Edition too.
yeah.
It would be a nightmare.
and just bring you. You'd be doing 360 carves,
Yeah.
without even trying. So by putting that tail rocker in there, it does help release the turn a little bit, but certainly you can feel like you're totally connected and just an incredible amount of energy out of these CTIs. But yeah, I think that there's just maybe a slightly more off-trail capability with this green one versus your black edition. Again, it's certainly kind of in that all-mountain realm because you can manipulate it. This one also comes, this one does come flat. I'm not sure if we have them available flat, but you can get them with a drill mount binding. And I think that that's really interesting in opening up more all-mountain potential with this ski flat. Your black edition there only comes with that EMX12 system on there. So if you're kind of in this zone but don't want that system, lower stand height, closer to the ski, you can get this CTI flat, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But then you're putting your own binding on it and adding to that cost. 3137 here, so that I think that gives you a better idea of what a non-184
Yeah.
will look like.
Well, and that extra sheet of carbon doesn't weigh much.
No, I doubt it weighs much at all.
Yeah.
It weighs $100 worth of carbon.
Yeah.
But yeah, no real need to go a whole lot further on these CTIs. It's really similar to your black edition there. Just a little bit more amenable to off-trail skiing with slightly more flexible feel, especially in the shovel. I think like that mid-body of the ski where you're definitely feeling crud and chop and mobility in those tighter spaces. That's where that green one just makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah. I fully appreciate the black edition, but I tend to have more fun skiing the just 86 CTI.
Yeah. I think a skier that's really looking for that next level of precision is going to go Black Edition, and
I
then,
agree.
like everyone else is going to be more into the CTI.
Yep. And keep $100.
Yep.
You don't get to keep $100 with this ski.
No, you're giving up some more.
Yeah. This is the Peregrine V-Werks. This is kind of interesting. Peregrine is a new line for 2025, and we've talked about it in other situations as well, but not all the skis are actually new. So
Really only two.
Two, yeah. So the 80 and the 82 are new.
Yeah.
All the others, just the name changes and the graphics change, but the ski is the same.
Yeah.
So this is the same as a Deacon V-Werks. So I think most people know that, but I would imagine that some people are still a little confused.
Not anymore.
Perfect.
Clear it right up.
So there's a ton of technology in this ski. It's really quite impressive. It is $1,449.99, so it's pretty darn expensive, but probably like a great representation of why it's expensive is it's only 2,900 grams with that binding, which like it's basically a Griffin, and Griffins aren't light,
Right.
not in a bad way. They're just solid, kind of chunky bindings. So the fact that they get the weight that low, that's where a lot of your money is going, basically. Poplar and beech wood core in this ski, and then we get like a ton of additives. So there's Titanal frame, there's tailored carbon tips and tails, there's 3D glass and 3D ridge, which we saw like
Back in RTM
way
84
yeah,
days, yeah.
right. And they just kind of like, this is one of the few skis that it's still
Yeah.
there. And then we get carbon jacket, like the way that the carbon wraps, like kind of almost like over the sidewall
Yeah.
is just so cool. I mean, it's like truly it's an engineering marvel and an excellent example of craftsmanship.
Yeah, this is one of those ones I would like to see them put together, you know, piece by
100%.
piece.
Yeah. 84 underfoot in this ski, 15-meter turn radius. That's the underfoot radius, so this also gets 3D radius. It's 24 in the tip and 21 in the tail. Pretty similar to kind of the conversation that we were having with that Fischer.
Yeah.
They're very snappy. They're not stiff.
Right.
That's something that has always been interesting to me about these skis.
They're very smooth and responsive.
Yeah.
But they won't beat you up.
No.
There's definitely a very distinct difference between the energy and the Peregrine versus that of the other skis over there.
Yeah.
But it is closer to those Wingmen in terms of the snap and the pep.
You can see it. We have footage of Scott
Yep.
skiing it, one of our reps, and he puts a lot of like weight into the tails
Yeah,
of skis,
yep.
and it's like a pretty good visual representation of what this ski can do. It's extremely responsive and energetic. I've always thought it is like a really, really good choice for a highly technical skier, or like kind of an ideal ski instructor ski. If you want something where you can like demonstrate lots of different turn shapes on a groomer, I can't think of much that's better than this.
I don't know. I've loved it every time I've been on it. I think it's an extraordinarily special ski. And I remember seeing someone like at J Peak in the spring a couple years ago on that ski.
The bumps?
Perfectly like groomed S-turns, edge to edge through spring slush.
Yeah.
And like it can do those things.
Yeah. Well, a lot of that is kind of because of this shape.
Yeah.
There's not like much camber height, and I think that's big in snow like that.
Yeah, totally.
Is this ski like doesn't really get its it doesn't get its chops from just having a lot of camber.
Right.
So in like that soft spring snow, if you have a lot of camber, a ski can kind of like auger into the snow when you don't want it to. Where this just kind of like skims over everything. And pretty similar really to the shape that we saw in the Wingman. There's long, low tip rocker, classic Volkl.
Yeah.
You see that in so many of their skis. and then similar in the tail, but definitely flatter tail than we saw in Wingman. So a little bit more precise. I would say really it's the most precision that we've seen so far in any ski, but it still works pretty well off trail too, as long as you have the skills to do it.
Yeah, and is always a little bit lighter than the outgoing Deacon 84.
Yeah.
And that was always interesting because it was able to maintain a high level of professionalism with an easier kind of turn shape and style.
Yep.
Which I thought was pretty cool.
Definitely.
We're going to continue our expensive trend here with this new Stockli Montero AR. We are at $1,399 without a binding, so you're getting a flat ski for almost $1,400. It does come with this Strive 13 demo. In some places, I believe that we are only having it flat. We have this ski from the company, so I believe we're only getting them flat.
That's my understanding, but I wouldn't be surprised if something showed up that had a binding on it.
Yeah, but either way, it's similar to the Wingman conversation, where if you're looking to get a little bit more all-mountain performance, then the flat is the way to go. In my last year's pair, I have an STH16 on it, and I think that that's like a great binding for it,
Yep.
just because it opens up the all-mountain versatility of the ski, whereas this demo with just a slightly higher stand height is going to give you a little bit more leverage in a frontside format. But yeah, it's expensive. I think that what Stockli does better than anyone else, though, is they just bring the volume down. These are the skis that you just don't feel anything under your foot. Doesn't matter what you're on. I've been in like 6 inches of powder with ice underneath, and this ski makes the same turn as it does on a packed powder groomer, or as it does on a firm sheet of ice. Like the ski does not discern between conditions and terrain.
No.
Like it's just incredibly smooth and predictable.
Yep, I agree.
They are built with lighter weight wood. It is poplar and beech, but Stockli site is very interested in saying that they're European lightweight woods. So I like how they kind of market that.
Like sourced in Europe?
I guess, yeah.
Or is like wood different in Europe?
They have lighter wood there, I guess. I don't know.
Interesting.
I always find it interesting how they kind of determine these things, but regardless, they do bolster that with 2 sheets of metal top and bottom. As with other Stockli skis, we are infused with rubber dust in those adhesive layers, and that's part of the charm in terms of the smoothness. You know, you do have some flexibility in the tip shape here. The new thing for this year is their tip and tail flex. So they've taken the flex torsion control, which was carved S-shaped slits in the tips and the tails, and they've doubled it. So 2 slits in the tips and 2 slits in the tails. What that's doing is it's allowing the tip and tail to articulate. And I was thinking about this the other day. To get better grip, so the ski is twisting on purpose, and it kind of reminded me of like the hoof of a mountain goat. So how the hoof is able to like get in different cracks and crevices of the rock.
Sure.
So is this tip.
Yep.
Just able to fine tune
Yep.
those little micro adjustments to stay engaged. And in the Montero, that also means that you're able to do these at variety of speeds. And I think that's one of the big things here is they're not trying to make a ski that just outperforms everything and is inaccessible to everyone. Like they definitely want to open this thing up to slower speeds and different shaped turns. So that's kind of the justification behind the new tip and tail flex. And I think it works pretty darn well. 16.3 meter radius here in the 175, and not a whole lot of rocker. Again, there's definitely more of a story to be told in that long camber profile as opposed to anything rocker oriented, but a little bit rounder. in the tips than we see in some other skis here that are really kind of flat, but very businesslike metal-clad tail back here, just the tiniest bit of splay at the very end. But I mean, you know, if you can justify that cost, you're getting an extraordinarily smooth and capable ski.
Yeah, and you emphasized that that price is no binding, despite the fact that our ski has a binding on it.
Yeah, correct. I would imagine this would be
I think it's 16
something, another $200 or something.
I think it's another 250-ish.
Yeah. I think it looks great. I think it looks great with that color.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with the visual aspect of that, but
yeah, the new AR is slick.
yeah,
I really like the look that they achieved. I don't dislike the new AX. I just think I like the AR. The black and blue is
it is pretty
really
nice.
appealing to me. Next up, we have this new Kastle MX84. Really cool ski. This is their new Infinicore, which, correct me if I'm wrong, is stringers of poplar and beech.
Correct.
Good, got it. And then we get 2 sheets of metal in this ski. That's kind of something that has always happened with MX skis. That's really important to their feel and their on-snow performance. Probably the biggest change, in my opinion, is this new Holotech.
Yeah.
So it's Holotech Evo. And basically what they've done is they've just kind of stopped the metal earlier than they ever did before. The bottom sheet of metal still goes through the whole length of the ski, but the top sheet or the top layer of metal ends right there. And it just adds a little bit of kind of compliance to this shovel. We talked about it with the MX88 in the 90 millimeter comparison, but it's nice. I like having it. MX skis have, for a long time, just felt like a little bit harsh, in my opinion.
They were very direct.
Yeah, and like their feedback. Yeah, and now I feel like they didn't really give up much. Like they still feel so incredibly precise and so rewarding and responsive on firm snow on a groomer, but they're just a little easier to engage, which I certainly appreciate, especially being a lighter skier. They're also not heavy, which is impressive considering there's 2 sheets of metal in here. So 1,900 grams on our scale here. And like I was saying, like the whole ski is pretty stiff. It's really just up here.
It's really just there.
Not.
And everything else is like
it's solid.
Super solid feel.
Yep. Looking at shape here, this one, although it's a flat ski, like this one doesn't come with bindings, I find that it's a very front side focused shape. If you're taking this off trail, you just need to have the skills to do it.
Yeah.
But not much tip rocker up here by any means, by length or splay. Interestingly, there's not much camber height there either, which I kind of think is nice. If there was a lot of camber, it would be hard to handle.
Yeah.
And then really no tail rocker back here at all. Basically the same as what you were just showing in Montero, Bob. And I know this is technically a men's comparison, but selfishly I'm putting in footage of my lovely wife because she makes this thing look great.
Yeah.
And she's an ex-ski racer, and I feel like that's really kind of that's a great representation of who is going to enjoy this ski the most. I don't think it's quite as approachable as that Montero. I think this ski just has a little bit more like bite to it, even though they took kind of some of that bite out of the shovel.
But not the tail.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and it's still like you need to know how to finish a turn because the ski is always going to want to finish a turn.
Yeah.
And like that, I think can just be a little overwhelming depending on your skiing style and your capabilities.
Yeah.
But it's phenomenal. I mean, for those skiers that are that level, it's so fun.
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, I might prefer skiing it to the 88. It's actually really similar to the conversation that we're going to have next, where like
Right.
I really like both skis, but if you're talking about like on-trail applications, which is generally what's going to happen even in their wider 88 siblings, why not go 84? a little quicker edge to edge.
Yeah, and it depends on your use case. Like if you're never off trail, if you're like only on
Right,
groomers,
then why would you,
Yeah,
what is the point of going wider? You know, and you could make the argument, you could be like, well, what are you talking about? Well, what's the point of 84? Why wouldn't you just stick with 70? But I do think that, like, it's nice having a little bit of extra width.
Yeah.
I don't like booting out stuff like that. I feel more confident on a ski that's a little bit wider.
yeah,
I don't think I talked about the price. $1,000 or $1,099.
yeah.
Which I think is like pretty impressive. It's
Yeah.
not cheap, it's
No.
not inexpensive, but for the technology and the performance that you're getting here, it's not bad.
Yeah, and I mean like going rate for a premium ski.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's for better or for worse. That's what it is.
I just think I think you have to give some credit to Kastle for making their ski $300 cheaper than
Right.
Stockli,
Yeah.
who is really pretty much their direct competitor.
Yeah, and I think like we get a lot of comments about these two,
Yeah.
differences and whatnot. And I think sound is the biggest. That's the one I point to a lot. The Stockli is a little bit quieter. The
Yeah.
Kastle just kind of has a little bit more of a precise ride to it, and that
100%.
does sound different.
Yeah.
That pre-preg fiberglass definitely has its own ping to it.
Yeah.
But performance-wise, there's no like real measurable difference. Like maybe a little bit more tail energy out of the Kastle, but
Yeah, I mean, it's more just the way that they feel,
Yeah.
like you're saying. The Stockli is smoother, the Kastle is more reactive.
yeah,
You feel things more
Yeah.
from the MX. And I know you're going to talk about it, but I have to put in my comment too.
go for it.
I love talking about those two skis. They are fantastic. Like, just extremely good accomplishments from a manufacturing perspective. The performance is off the charts. This is not far behind.
Right. Like, what's the deal with this? Like, it's crazy how this Blizzard Anomaly 84 comes in at $649.99. So we
And,
had fun.
Has a ton of technology.
Yep.
Has premium materials.
Yep.
Gets, I don't know.
So do you
Lot.
get two Anomaly 84s and a nice dinner with your wife
Instead of
a
a Montero AR.
Yeah. Like there's
It depends on your own personal finances.
Totally.
Right.
Yeah.
Like for some people, $1,400 is nothing.
Right.
And then go get a Montero. But
Yeah.
if $1,400 isn't nothing, then it's an interesting decision.
Yeah, I think that we kind of were a little bit stunned at seeing how, I don't want to say inexpensive, but financially approachable the Anomaly 84 is versus the Kastle and the Stockli.
I think so. I mean, when you put them in a row like this
Yeah.
and have the conversation about their performance, you can't ignore the
Right.
difference in price.
Yeah, because it is vast.
Yeah.
New Anomaly 84. We are very excited about the entire Anomaly line. I think the 88 has particularly caught our attention as just being a good ski for what we do around here in Vermont. But the 84 is right there. This is the one that, on paper at least, intrigued me the most because it really kind of took what the Brahma 82 offered in the past and then just opened up and unlocked the potential from an all-mountain standpoint. That Brahma 82 was very much locked into a directional carved turn.
Yeah, it was a little punishing at times.
Yeah, and this doesn't really take too much off the top. Like, people were not reaching the top of a Brahma 82. Like,
No,
very few.
not often, no.
And that same skier, I think, will be equally as happy on this Anomaly 84. New sophisticated construction. We do get that true blend all mountain wood core. So poplar and beech stringers, beech extending through the middle longer. So that's putting more emphasis on the central chord of the ski. Then a full sheet of metal on the bottom. And then their flux form metal on top. So two sheets on the side and then one in the middle. So that second sheet is broken up into three parts and put in different layers within the ski. So They are making it a little bit more sophisticated in their approach and putting emphasis on the edges where it needs to be, and then still keeping the stability through the middle. So really, really solid build. 1,839 grams. This is the 170. It was either this or a 163, I think we had a choice from, just because they're very popular.
Yeah, they're already selling pretty. I mean, all the Anomaly skis are.
Yeah.
They're moving pretty quickly.
Yeah. So at this weight, or at this length at least, we do have, not too heavy, and then a nice kind of round, even flex. Not as stiff as some of the other skis on this list. And then we get a nice new kind of rocker and camber profile here. So I think we're entering kind of a true all-mountain ski shape here for the first time. This is, I would say, a bigger difference than what we've seen so far. So more splay, longer rocker, and that is true in the tail for sure. So this is a bigger change from where we were in Brahma 82, which was definitely more connected tip to tail, but having this extra rocker here in the tail really opens up the off-trail capacity of this thing. 14 meters here, again, 170, so it does get longer as you get wide. The turn radius opens up as you get longer in the ski, but we really enjoyed the mix of on-trail confidence and off-trail capabilities of this thing. We did a nice on-snow review at Pico when we first got on them, and it is a very natural and intuitive feel. We noticed that for Anomaly 88 as well, where it just kind of goes where you point it and does what you want it to do.
Yeah.
It's not too punishing. Not too stiff. It definitely is able to, move with the terrain, absorb moguls. It is 84 underfoot, so it's going to be quick enough edge to edge to get through some tighter trees. I definitely think there's a good all-mountain capability here.
Yeah, I agree.
And, when we're talking 84 versus 88, we're really just talking about 4 extra millimeters of width, but it does kind of add up. If you want the quickness of that on-trail narrow ski, but the width of a wider frontside ski, this is a great place to be.
Yep.
But yeah, nothing wrong to say about this Anomaly. Like it's hard to kind of, it's hard to nitpick when something is as kind of complete as this Anomaly 84 is. The only thing really for this between the 88 is just that the on-snow feel of the 88 is that much more substantial, like more material. It just feels more comprehensive.
Yeah.
And confident, whereas this is like,
no, I don't disagree, but I think like that's not just a negative.
No, I don't think so.
Like this ski, and they're both, you touched on this a little bit, but neither one is like anywhere near as hard to ski as Brahma 82 or 88.
Yeah.
And they're relatively similar in their like approachability and how demanding they are. But this one, like, perfectly fine for an intermediate.
Yeah.
And I do think that like Anomaly 88 for an intermediate, like that's a little kind of where I make a break point of like, I don't know that I would feel good recommending an Anomaly 88 to a true intermediate level skier, where I'd feel pretty good about that.
I'd say that the intermediate on the 84 will be able to access a higher percentage
Exactly.
of the ski's
they'll
capacity.
like enjoy it more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas the 88, they'll only get 60% of the way as opposed to 80%.
So yeah, like, and for somebody like Ryan, like
Yeah.
Allie's husband, who's a ripping ski racer, like that's the type of person where he's going to kind of feel the opposite.
Right.
Like he would undoubtedly prefer the 88.
Yeah.
So kind of interesting. But a lot of value there.
Yeah, I was surprised to see that number.
Yeah, and I consider this as having a lot of value as well. This one's $799 and comes with a binding, so pretty comparable. If anything, like I'd say $100 less than an Anomaly 84 if you want to like compare it exactly.
Add 200 for a binding for the flat ski.
Or 250 really, because bindings aren't really $200 anymore.
Yeah.
Some, but few.
Too bad.
Yeah, too bad. So this is the Nordica Steadfast 85. This ski is awesome. It's back again for 2025 with no real changes. Did the name change? They dropped
DC?
DC.
Carryover. No.
I thought they like dropped DC for some reason.
It's still right there.
Okay, fair enough. This ski, really, like the Wild Bell gets more credit, but this ski has a lot of technology that's starting to filter into other Nordica skis. Pulse core is something that we're seeing now in new Enforcers and new Santa Anas, and we get it in here. So this basically has the double core technology. So it's a wood core that's kind of split into top and bottom layers, and then in between that wood core is a single sheet of metal. So it might not come through on camera, but it's visibly pretty darn obvious. You can see it.
You can see it.
If you happen to, if there's one of these on the wall of your local ski shop, you can pick it up and it's very easy to see. And I have, from day one, I really, really enjoyed this ski. It's very easy to ski. It's easier to ski than Anomaly, for sure. It doesn't quite get to that level of performance, but for a ski that's $799 that comes with a binding, I think it gets to a pretty high level of performance. And I also think it fills a really nice zone in Nordica's collection, because it's like a perfect stepping stone from like Spitfire to Enforcer. If you kind of think about those two skis, like Spitfire is like just wide race ski, Enforcer is true full-on all-mountain ski. This is kind of right in between. Type of ski that you're probably spending most of your time on a groomer, but you don't want it to feel harsh. 3,125 grams on our scale here, so nothing like wild about that weight. Pretty straightforward, and a nice round, like fairly forgiving flex pattern, which I think is great. And then the shape is just like I said, very approachable. There's not a crazy amount of tip rocker up here. There's some of the most camber that we've seen, but with the softer flex, that's okay. It's kind of countering that higher camber height. And then there's not much tail rocker, but look how round they make it.
Everything is round.
It's so round.
Love the roundness of this ski.
Yeah, and I think that's where like all the forgiveness is coming from. Is it's so easy to ski, and I would imagine that like not that many people consider it as an option.
Yeah, I think
it's like so easy to overlook.
Your point of it being between the Spitfire and the Enforcer can be seen as like as a gap for some, but then you might just look right through it for others. And that's kind of the unfortunate part, I think, because this thing is just, it punches above its level. It is extraordinarily approachable and so fun. Like, this is on my list of my Bretton Woods retirement groomer skis.
And how many skiers out there are basically skiing in that style? Like, you're not pushing it. Like, you don't want to get hurt. You're skiing.
You're linking clean, round, carved turns.
Skiing in control at moderate speeds. Like, that's this ski. And then, like, how many of those skiers go by Kendos or Enforcers? And, like, those are great skis, but you're kind of doing yourself a disservice if you're not, like, skiing fast and aggressively. And then a ski like this is just, like, this is what you should be on. So.
Yeah, I was 100% impressed when we got on that last year, and definitely made some of my favorite turns of all of last year.
I agree.
I feel like I am 100% in control and connected to the snow.
Yeah, and like so locked in.
Yeah.
But like not locked in like a turn capacity, more just like into what you're doing.
Yeah. And like that thing tops out at a 179, so that's my length.
Yep.
And it never felt like too short. It felt like it was the appropriate length for the turn it was trying to make.
Right, because you ski within its means.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 And then I was impressed with the versatility too. I thought it was like totally fine off trail and bumps and stuff like that because it is mobile. It's easy to turn.
Yeah, and the roundness.
Yeah.
It never feels catchy, which I think is important for a ski like that.
Yeah, no, super impressed. What do we got? Q78 now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just before we get there, again, like I know I said it, but I can't ignore the value in those two skis.
Yeah.
They're very good. And they're very different. Like different vibes.
Totally.
Like they look different. I'm just kind of now realizing that they're made in the same factory.
Right. How much sharing is going on between those two? Like probably
It's
more
almost
than you
like they
think.
discussed it and we're like, we're not going to make, like, let's make our 84, 85 skis
Right.
like different enough.
Yeah.
I don't think they did discuss it, but it's just interesting to think about.
I think we're kind of in the meat of the range here that we're kind of calling high-end intermediate skis. So Steadfast, this Redster Q78, and then the next head Shape V10, all kind of fall into this category of being really well-made and purposefully built skis that work really great for intermediate skiers that don't want to get something cheaper or I don't want to say crappier, but like
Yeah.
these have
They're real
a
skis.
lot of technology and sophistication built into them for intermediate skiers. And you know, intermediate skiers make up the bulk of the skiing population. So I think it's really smart of these companies to be making skis that target that audience, that'll help them progress and give them a quality product that they'll be happy on and have fun on.
They're all $7.99 too.
They're all $7.99.
These three.
Yeah.
Like they're very, it's just cool to see.
Yeah. So this Redster Q 7.8 shares the footprint with the 9.8 over there. So 84.5 underfoot at this length, short 14.5 meter turn radius, full camber, no taper at all in the tip or in the tail. Basically the main difference here is that we get carbon RevoShock plates here as opposed to steel, and we get a different binding. So this is like the M12 version versus the X12, and you know, not like a huge performance difference at all, just a different look and style and connection to the ski. Basically the performance difference is you get more pep and energy out of this one as it's more carbon based and a little bit lighter, 2,927 grams versus the more steel plated Q 9.8. So whereas that one just feels like super connected and planted, edge to edge, you're just rolling, making that nice crisp round turn. This one you just get a little bit more pep out of. So it's still like pretty stiff.
Yeah.
You know, there is not a whole lot of flex here. And when you have a fully cambered ski that has a wide shovel like this, that means it just hooks right in. So every time you put it on edge, it's just a direct connection to the edge of the ski, and you hook right into the side cut. And then same thing in the tail, nice flared out tail, just rips you through the turn and right into the next one. So excellent initiation and completion phases for this ski, and just a whole lot of fun. So I think that this skier is just slightly less aggressive and are interested in saving, what, $300?
Oh,
$250?
compared to 9.8?
Yeah, to the 9.8.
Yeah. I was going to say, I feel like they're a little bit more on-trail oriented than Steadfast and Shape.
I would much rather ski Steadfast off trail than either Shape or this Redster.
I'd rather ski Shape off trail than Redster too.
Interesting.
I think.
I wouldn't rather ski either of them off trail
Yeah.
all that much, but for going through kind of, especially around here throughout the day, the groomers just get cut up because there's a lot of skier traffic.
Yeah.
And so having to kind of navigate either softer conditions, a mix of granular and ice, or just kind of overall crud, I think having this extra footprint but still being connected to the snow and finding the bottom makes a lot of sense. Whereas that Steadfast, I think, is a little bit more shifty and able to stay on top.
Yeah.
These and the head are going to want to go dive and find the bottom.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I was more just it's like mindset.
Yeah.
Like if it's more like what you care most about when you go skiing is if it's turns on groomers and you don't care about anything else, that might be the better choice for you.
Yeah.
What was the weight there? It was like just under 3,000.
Yeah, I got it. It was under 3. Yeah, 2920.
I'm curious. You want to just trade? So now moving on to this head shape E V10 2775.
Yep.
So that's kind of what I was expecting. This one without the binding is quite light.
Yeah.
Which we expect from head. And these share a lot of ingredients with cores, so it kind of makes sense that they're light. That's where my mind was going to, thinking that like I would rather ski this off trail
just
than
more,
Redster,
more agility.
just because it's a little bit easier to kind of flick around. It's a great ski. There's Caruba wood core in this ski, very similar to what we see in those cores, and then we get graphene, we get carbon. So in a lot of ways, they're built very similarly, but we do get the energy management circuit that we see more in super shapes.
Yep.
So it's kind of like a blend of super shape and core, which is pretty interesting, and like I was saying about Steadfast, kind of acts as like a really nice stepping stone from super shape Titan to Core 87 there.
Yep.
Is if you're familiar with those skis, this is basically right in between. There's footage of our rep, Ken, skiing these skis, I think. And while he is a very good skier, I also think like he wouldn't disagree with me that he's getting older and probably slowing down a little bit as a skier. And every time I watch him ski this, I think it looks really good.
Yeah.
Like very snappy, very technical, very responsive.
Really controlled.
Exactly.
Yep.
And like if that's kind of your skiing style, like, your retired days at Bretton Woods, I could see this being a fantastic choice too.
Yeah.
So just kind of a little anecdote there. It is stiff, kind of just like those cores. I think that's just what happens with this construction. So there is, you do have to kind of consider that and whether you want a ski that's this stiff. And, I think there's something to be said in a lot of situations about the ease of use of a slightly softer flexing ski like the Steadfast. But if you're a very technical skier and you want more responsiveness, you're going to get a little bit more out of this ski. And I know that you were kind of alluding to it feeling more like the Redster Q7.8 than the Steadfast, but for me it feels kind of in between those skis. I would have a hard time personally saying that it's more like the Redster. So if what we were saying about those two skis, if neither one quite sounded right, then this could potentially kind of be the Goldilocks ski, I suppose. Really high camber. So with that stiff flex and a lot of camber, that's kind of where all that responsiveness and feedback is coming from. And there's not much rocker in this ski at all. A tiny bit of tip rocker, but that's about it. There's really like nothing back here in the tail, and it's quite
super
flared out. Yeah. So that's another thing. Camber and like all that extended side cut through the tail is you're gonna get a really snappy, strong finish to a turn. And it is a 14.8 meter turn radius, so it's pretty zippy.
Yeah, I personally struggled a little bit with that blend of lightweight, stiff flex, and short radius.
Oh, sure.
If you're my weight, you really have to engage into that turn radius.
Yeah.
And happens fast.
Yep.
Like that is a very responsive ski that comes right across the fall line.
Yeah.
It's not as easy to break free from that radius if you're heavier. We talk about it a lot with the cores, where if you're lighter and you're happier making kind of more swishy turns, it's fine.
Yeah.
If you are heavier and more aggressive and you try to engage that, it takes off and it is a little bit harder to control.
Yeah.
So that's why I lean more towards the Steadfast, is because it's more supple.
Sure.
And you can kind of adjust the flex of it a little bit easier than that V10, which is pretty, I mean, it is like a very precise ski.
Yep.
Especially for me.
It's interesting.
And then like if you move to like the Titan, which we wanted to have on this list, we didn't have the ski, it's in the written article. But moving to the Titan with like a denser wood core and a stiffer feel, but a similar overall shape, like I can
probably more predictable.
Yeah, I can power through that easier.
It makes sense.
But I kind of either overpower it or underpower the V10.
Yeah,
personally.
Well, Ken is closer to my size.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a skier weight difference there.
I don't know. I want to get on it again. I got to give it another try.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Move to my side here on the flat side of the wall here.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a new Rossignol Arcade 84. We're pretty excited about these Arcade 84s because they're kind of a throwback to a more traditional all-mountain ski. I think there's a lot of like traditional feel to this thing that makes it just a very satisfying and rewarding ski experience.
Yeah.
They have this, so this is kind of taking over from where Experience left off. So they have an Arcade 84 and an 88. So this is like, I don't know, taking the 86, the Experience 86. I don't know.
It's right in between the 82 and the 86, so it's hard to say.
Yeah. So it's kind of easier to say it's its own thing because it is quite different from the Experience 82 or the 86, either mostly TI, definitely different than the Basalt. But this one comes in at $649.95, which is a great deal, similar to what we talked about with the Anomaly 84. Your performance to price ratio is off the charts.
Yeah. So
you're getting a ton of sophistication and energy in this Arcade 84 for a pretty reasonable price. They are built with a full poplar wood core. We do get metal underfoot and then vibration absorption system in the shovels here. It's really the thickness of the wood core that stands out to me here. And really kind of creates this stiff and really energetic flex. I mean, this thing is stiff. Very stiff and just shoots you across the hill. A very, very fun and rewarding ski. This is another one that could be a good Bretton Woods retirement ski because it does have slightly more all-mountain capacity than a Steadfast. 1,800 grams. So not too heavy, but we are seeing that more traditional camber profile here in the ski with some nice high camber underfoot and long. So a lot of camber in this thing. That's what gives it its traditional feel and not a whole lot of rocker. I mean, the rocker, basically non-existent.
Yeah, same with taper.
Yeah, also taper, like very much a true tip to tail camber and taper shape. Little bit of rocker in the tail, I think that's good. This is more in line with what we saw from the shape of the Experience 86, just a little bit of tail rocker, just to help get out of the turn a little bit, open up slight amounts of that versatility. But overall, this thing I found was happier in a carved turn, 15 meters in the 176. It does like that 15 meter arc.
Yeah, I agree.
And it loves to link turns in that zone.
Yep.
And it is happy on a variety of like pitches.
Yep.
That's kind of the fun thing about this is if it gets steeper, then you're really like you get the whole energy of the ski, combining the flex and the camber and the short radius, get a super rewarding carve, and you can really kind of dig in to steeper terrain. And then on flatter and mellower stuff, you just let it roll.
Yeah.
Like that is just extremely fun to let it roll and then feel that energy. It makes more mellow terrain feel more enticing.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like on the steeper terrain, you have to be a little bit more engaged. Because if you try and let it roll on the steeper terrain like that, you like get going too fast, and then the ski doesn't love it.
Yeah.
Like the 88 can handle that.
Because that's got full metal.
Yeah, on steep terrain, if you just roll the 88 on edge and ride that radius and like let it go and not really ski it, the ski can handle it. You just need to be a little bit more engaged and like be involved in the skiing process.
Yeah, it's funny, you know, like on paper, I would say I'm more of an 88 skier, but I had a lot more just overall fun on this 84 this year.
Yeah.
You know, because of that camber, it's a little tough in the bumps. Like, you know, I think we'll talk more about mogul performance as we kind of go through these flats. You do have to have kind of a good skill set to make this thing work well in the moguls. It's fine, but again, with a flared out tail and a short turn radius, it's hard to get it to kind of go where you want it to go. It's going to want to find the troughs and stay kind of in the bottom. But great skis, great value. I think super competitive with that Anomaly 84 on a number of factors. You know, with that Anomaly just being, I would say, a little bit smoother and more predictable overall.
That one a little more responsive.
A little bit more responsive.
Yeah. I agree. These next two skis are somewhat of outliers in my opinion. This is the new Black Crow's Octo, and the reason I think that they're outliers is we're about to move into what I would consider some very affordable skis overall, really starting with that M-Pro 85. They're affordable because people buy them, but it's a $900 ski, so there is something to be said about that. If you're familiar with Black Crows, that's not like a wildly alarming price tag for a ski made by Black Crows because they typically are a little bit higher priced than some other manufacturers. But the ski itself is quite simple. So this is basically the direct replacement for the Verdis, but it takes a lot of cues from the Mirus core that Bob will talk about next. But it's just a poplar wood core. So that actually is kind of true with Black Crows as well, is a lot of their skis are fairly simple when you look at the construction, and it's just all the like really detailed differences in their shapes. That's like where they get their uniqueness. Yeah. And that's definitely true with this ski. So 1,630 grams on the scale there, and it's not stiff by any means. It's probably the softest ski that we've looked at so far. And then if you're looking at the tip of that Mirus core over there, the tip of this ski is very similar. You might have a little bit more rocker in yours over there, but the overall shape is pretty darn similar. Ridiculous amounts of camber. That's like in this ski.
Yeah, you know, you talk about Black Crows approaching things differently from a profile perspective. Like that's Exhibit
shape.
A.
Yep. So fascinating amount of camber. And then the big difference between this ski and the Mirus core is this is a flatter tail, and a much flatter tail, and it's also a narrower tail.
Yeah.
So that Mirus core gets a really, really wide, flared out tail. This being quite a bit narrower definitely changes its performance. It's still a short turn radius. It's a 14-meter turn radius, but you've got a 13, I think, on Mirus core. And I feel like when this ski was first announced, a lot of people, understandably so, thought it was going to just kind of be a narrow Mirus core, and it's quite a bit different in my opinion. They share some characteristics, but there are a lot of things that separate them too. I find, not to get ahead too far, but I find that this ski actually makes more different turn styles more easily than Mirus Core because of the narrower tail. Like if you're trying to break free and just make like short skidded turns on the side of the trail, this does it great.
Yeah.
I also think it doesn't have quite the same vigor in finishing a carving turn as Mirus Core, as well as not quite as much torsional stiffness.
Especially underfoot where this has the metal.
Yeah, so you can't quite push it as hard. And there's footage of my lovely wife, again, on the Birdie version of this ski, which is the same just
yeah.
comes in shorter lengths. And, you know, I think, like, for those of you that watched the whole video, or maybe at least watched the Kastle MX84 part, you can kind of see a difference in how she's skiing both skis, which I think is a really good visual representation of kind of what this ski can't do, is just like rip crazy carves, but it can definitely make nice carving turns at moderate speeds on moderately pitched slopes, and then you can make tons of different turn shapes. So it's really like, it's more of a Virtus to me than a Mirus Core. It draws some cues from Mirus Core that show up in its shape, but from an on-trail performance perspective, I find it to feel more like an enhanced Virtus.
I think that this is like a masterclass in marketing and branding from Black Crows, because the Virtus was a perennial favorite in our ski tests.
People loved it,
They loved it.
but no one bought it.
No one bought it. And I think it just had too classic of a look.
It like looked too boring.
Yeah. And so all they, like, really all they did was
Make the tip.
make it look like a Mirus Core.
Yeah.
Call it an Octo.
Yeah.
But it's still a Virtus. Like, it has the same construction,
similar.
turn shape, and overall feel as the Virtus.
Yeah.
They've just like they marketed it as a different ski.
Yeah, they just pumped a whole bunch of coolness into it.
Yeah, and now it's flying.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. I think, and we always kind of had that Virtus in our hands, and we're like, why don't people get this? This ski is awesome.
Yeah.
Everyone who gets on it loves it. They love the engagement, the short turn. They forget what it's like to have just this crazy amount of camber underfoot. Like, it's just a totally different profile than anything else out there. Like, why aren't people buying this Virtus? And I guess it's just because it didn't have a cool tip shape.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Yeah, and it's like we were saying, the ski was great.
Yeah.
So the fact that Black Crows could not really change it that much and achieve what they were looking for, I think is awesome.
No, I think they killed it with this Octo.
Yeah.
From a branding perspective. They've just like made it appealing to skiers.
Yeah, and they do a good job of that.
They do a great job. Yeah, I mean, we can talk about this Mirus Core too, in much the same way, where they just went out and made something totally unique and different. This one is $899. No, sorry, $999.
$1,000.
So $1,000, 1,800 grams there on your scale. Just an extraordinarily interesting and unique ski. So 87 millimeters underfoot. This one produces 13-meter turn radius, and it's the symmetry of the shape and construction that really make this thing stand out from other skis. So very symmetrical in terms of rocker and shape. So there is some nice long rocker here, pretty low profile, not a lot of splay, and then pretty darn similar in the tail. I don't know if it's 100% symmetrical in terms of rocker, but
not, but it's pretty close.
yeah, it's close. And then also tail width. So we do get this swallowtail technology here that does help. Again, I think this is like Black Crow's version of the mountain goat hoof, where it's hooking in where it needs to, and it's releasing where it doesn't.
The release
need to.
is key.
Yeah. So really interesting tail shape going on there. If we always kind of talk about, if this didn't exist, if it was just full, it just wouldn't be as fun or playful. But poplar wood core, metal underfoot, and that metal does a great job at keeping the ski kind of fixed in that short turn radius. And over the years, we've had, I don't want to say a difficult time, but we've kind of gone back and forth as to what this ski is and who is it for and what's the use case. And like, I still don't have a concrete answer.
I was just gonna say it's for me and what I want to do.
Yeah, but like
on the Mirus core.
Yeah, whatever you want to do. You know, it's definitely a very unique set of skills where, yeah, it's a twin tip. Like Jeff can use it in the park, but also it's got a slalom radius and metal underfoot, so it can carve just insanely deep round turns on groomers.
It's so fun.
Yeah, and like, but that 13-meter radius does have, you know, its limitations in terms of speed. Straight line, you know, whatever. You can go straight and fast on pretty much anything here. You know, I think that the more cambered skis like your Redster 9.8 over there are gonna want to hook in a little bit, but because there's enough rocker here, sure, you can go straight and fast on a groomer or in crud or chop or anything like that. I think the minute that you're trying to get from that straight line speed into a carved turn, that's where you're going to feel a little bit of pushback here from the stability and the width of the shovel. So, you know, that's it. But I think you have to be pretty honest with yourselves of how often that specific instance comes up versus how often am I like on a groomer trying to make nice carved turns? How often am I in the trees or in the bumps trying to just be nice and shifty and clean? And I think that those percentages fall to the favor of the Mirus core. So comparatively to Octo, like there's a lot less camber underfoot, pretty flat, nice and easy and fun to get sideways and be smeary and slashy. You do have to be cognizant of the tail.
Yeah, it's width.
Yeah, that'll hook in, but again, it is able to articulate due to the swallowtail.
Yep.
So that's kind of where the balancing act is.
Yep.
You know, is this a ski that you have as your only ski? Yeah, sure.
I was going to say probably not.
Probably not, but it could be.
It could be.
You know, it's it's just one of those interesting skis that has a unique personality, and if you like that and want that, then great. But if there's something wider that you want to handle more crud, more chop, better flotation and deep snow, then that's fine too.
Yeah, it's not necessarily like one-dimensional.
Yeah.
If it is one-dimensional, its dimension is Mirus core, because there's nothing else really like it.
Yeah.
But like, I don't consider it a versatile ski, because it kind of just wants to do Mirus core things, which are very specific to Mirus core.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's an interesting ski. I think it's like a great one to buy and keep for 15 years and ski it every once in a while. Like when you want a little bit of a different experience and you want your ski day to feel a little bit special, take your Mirus core. I also I have to give a lot of credit to Black Crows for staying committed to that ski, because when it first came out, like no one bought it.
Right.
Really, I think for like the first 2 years that it existed, like no one bought it, to the point where people were even like, what is that?
Right, what are you doing?
That is weird. Why would a ski manufacturer even like think about making that?
Right.
And Black Crows just kept being like, it's really fun.
Yep.
It's really fun. It's really fun.
Yep.
It's really fun. And fast forward to today, and it's like one of the most popular skis from at least its like excitement.
Yeah.
Like people get really excited about it, and like they don't make as many as, I'm gonna go out and make a guess that Anomaly
will outsell a Mirus core,
or just from production numbers, like they probably make more.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say that like this is one of the most popular skis or like in high demand, but people that want it really want it and go out and buy it. Like last year, it sold out really early in the season, which was rare. Like not many skis, and not just for us, I mean like across the board, like you couldn't get one. And not many, that didn't happen to many skis last year.
I liked it in the bumps and trees. I thought it was totally fine. You know,
you still have to like ski it within it, like in a certain lens or through a certain lens.
And like I'm just used to 87, 88 in the bumps,
Yeah.
and packed out woods. Like
Sure.
that, for me, that's a sweet spot.
Yeah.
But yeah, really cool, very interesting, and
Yeah.
just an extraordinarily rewarding carver.
I'll probably put the footage in. I've used it so many times, but I really enjoyed skiing that ski at Waterville with Emily.
Yep.
And just being like, okay, Emily, you got to ski behind me
Follow my
and try
tracks.
and make the exact same turns that I do.
Yeah.
And I think she had a really good time doing that. And
Yes.
Emily, a lot of the time, skis like really straight and really fast. So it was fun to like, it's like, okay, no, you got to do Mirus core things. This is a Mirus core.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. This is the Dynastar M-Pro 85. We're kind of moving back into that like sweet spot for intermediate world, and this ski is far less expensive than the $900 Octo and the $1,000 Mirus core. We're back to just $599.95 as a flat ski, so really very comparable to these $799 system skis over here, and that'll basically remain true for the rest of the video with the exception of the core.
Yeah.
So anyways, this ski has hybrid core. They didn't call it 1.0 at the time, but it's essentially the first version of Dynastar's hybrid core, so poplar and then that polyurethane material as well to kind of quiet the ski a little bit. Don't believe the Dynastar website that tells you that this ski has Titanal rocket frame, because it does not. It has fiberglass rocket frame, and maybe somebody from Dynastar will watch this video and update their website.
Told them.
This, I know, several times I think. So this ski is a little different than the wider M-Pro models. Those also changed for 2025, so now it's even more different.
Yep.
So it'd be better to compare it to the 2024, but it doesn't really matter. Those skis had Titanal rocket frame. The new skis have more of like the H-influenced metal application that's a little bit shorter. This one has basically the same shape as the 2024 wider M-Pros, so truly is shaped like a rocket. But in this ski, it's fiberglass. So that's keeping the weight down. It's just 1,620 grams. This is the 176, so it's even pretty long to achieve that weight. And they're also a little bit softer. You know, the M-Pro 90 and 99 that are gone now, those skis were incredibly stiff, particularly through the tail. These skis are a lot more compliant, but they kind of share the same shape. So huge, long tip rocker. Definitely the most tip rocker that we've seen so far, and probably the most on the whole wall. I suppose you'd have to measure the volume to really get a difference between the Blaze and this ski, because
Blaze a lot more dramatic.
Blaze is longer. This is more splay. So yeah, nice long rocker and nice spoony tip too. There's some nice early taper through the tip there. The tail is quite different. There's not nearly as much rocker in the tail, and it's a little bit more kind of bowed out. There's not as much taper in the tail. So this ski I think is really cool. You know, when we were over here talking about what are your skiing preferences? Do you spend all your time on trail? Do you want to go off trail a little bit? Do you want to do a blend of those things? This to me leans even more towards the I like going off trail, being flat. You know, you're putting a flat binding on here, you're going to have a lower stand height, and then you get all this tip rocker to help with softer snow, but it still finishes a turn pretty nicely. I was like pretty surprised when I first skied this thing of just how much you can actually ski it.
Yeah.
Because kind of my impression when they told us about it, like it was just going to be kind of a dumbed down M-Pro 90, and it really doesn't feel like that at all. It feels different. It's easier to ski. It's more forgiving, but it still has like some really nice performance to it, in my opinion, and a nice crisp finish to a turn when you want it, but I don't think it feels locked in either.
I think this is one of those skis where it's like expectation versus reality, where the reality of the ski experience is a lot higher than what you might think on paper, especially like you've been comparing it to the outgoing 90 and 99, where you're like, oh, it's not going to be as good, but like, you know, there's definitely a wow factor when you get on that and feel the energy and the grip come through.
I agree 100%. Is like, yeah, it surpasses expectations, and it's like another one that like, and I know we have this conversation a lot, but all those skiers that fall a little bit closer to intermediate, you ski 20 to 30 days a year at most, probably,
yeah.
or maybe more like 10 to 20. Yeah. And like a lot of those skiers go out, and this was always the big like fault of magazine ski tests, in my opinion, where they would put a big gold medal on something, or a big like #1, this is the best ski. And then those skiers that don't ski that often and aren't that aggressive would flip through the magazine and be like, well, that's best.
Right.
And like from a consumer perspective, it makes a lot of sense, because we do that as humans and consumers with like almost every other product. Like, oh, this one's better, I'll get that one.
Right.
Like I was shopping for generators yesterday. Like, yeah, the better one is better. It's not like the less expensive one is better for me. Like the better one's just better.
Right.
I suppose you could argue a little bit with like my electricity needs and stuff like that, but you know what I'm saying. Where I think this ski, if people could just be convinced to consider skis like this, I think a lot of skiers would have a better time. Yeah,
again, the expectation is not quite where the reality, doesn't meet up on this thing. Pretty impressive.
I'd say the same is true with the next one.
A couple on the end here, I think fall into that category. Apologies for the size on this Salomon Stance 84.
It's not your fault. It's going to look really light.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely a tiny little 161 right here. What are we at? 1,400 grams. Wow. No, obviously that's going to go up. I think that the more appropriate lengths for me would be in the 17 to 1,800 gram range, but certainly kind of the unsung hero of the Stance line. This 84 does feature a slightly different build and shape than the wider 90 and 96, and especially the 102. But this 84 is about as useful as it gets when it comes to an all-mountain ski.
Yeah, I'll probably have to put the Alta footage in again.
Okay.
It's really old at this point, but it's the same ski.
It holds up, yeah. And just has an incredible range. Good value too here. What are we at?
Yeah, $549.
$549.95. So you're getting mostly a sidewall ski here, metal underfoot, carbon stringers in the tips and tails to go along with a poplar wood core. They do transition to cap in the very tips and tails, and that actually really helps with the swing weight. If you're thinking about the skier that's on this Stance 84, kind of this progressing intermediate, and I'm kind of talking about the target audience here.
Yep.
You're putting that progressing intermediate on this ski and just having it easier to get from one turn to the next, as well as adding some durability into the top sheet, just makes a whole lot of sense. So it definitely has that energy and the stiffness. It's so funny flexing this little ski.
Well, it's like not a great example.
Right.
Because shorter skis are stiffer. Which is weird.
Yeah. But you can tell more from the profile at least, where it does have kind of that spoonier tip shape. So starting to see some early taper here. Widest part of the ski is brought down. This is different than a lot of other skis on this wall that have no taper. Widest part is at the very tip. And then rocker profile is adequate. It's not, it's definitely a little bit more front side / all mountain, but not crazy free ride style. And then pretty low rocker in the tail, helps with releasing from the turns and just provides more smoothness overall. So really, really fun. Again, huge range. Most skiers that spend most of their time on resort trails, this is it. This is checks the boxes, does the things.
Yeah, by resort trails you mean everything.
Yeah.
Like at Stowe, you're gonna ski Lord to Centerline to Fifth Ave to those trees that have a name. to standard,
Yeah.
to duck walk,
Yep.
to what are the woods that you ski with your kids in between standard and gulch?
I'm not telling you the name.
Okay. So if you're
We gotta
familiar,
we gotta film that run.
if you're familiar with Stowe,
Yeah.
like that, you know, or like that's just, and if you're not familiar with Stowe, that's a groomer to a
Bumps.
mogul trail, back to a groomer to some low angle trees, back to a groomer to a weird old school trail that doesn't really get groomed, it's really short, back to a groomer into Bob's secret trees.
Yeah, that's a Stance 84 run right
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty cool. You know, it's not as high octane as the wider Stance skis. Like you don't get the same performance level like on the high end. But for most skiers, like they're not going to overpower a Stance 84.
yeah. And I feel like I've skied it pretty hard.
Yeah,
Like I've pushed it on a groomer pretty hard.
yeah,
And it takes some work to find its limit.
yeah. No, it's great. This is so fun. Does a whole lot of things really, really well. Really well built.
Next ski up here, this is technically the women's graphic. This is the K2 Mindbender 85. We just didn't have the men's graphic available for filming, but it's the same ski, so just consider this a placeholder. This is the least expensive ski on the wall at $449.95. And I would say that that's reflected in its performance.
Yeah.
You know, I think like if you're gonna look at torsional stiffness and carving ability, the only ski that I would say doesn't, that I don't want to say worse, but carves worse than this might be like Blaze. But that ski has so many other
Yeah, you're
things
still
going
getting
on with it that it's
yeah.
like, it's not fair to say that. But yeah, with a ski that's $449, you're not going to get endless performance. There's a limit to what this ski can do, but there's also a lot of value here. It's an aspen wood core. It's got a vertical sidewall through most of the ski. It does kind of change into cap construction like you saw in Stance too, but it's a solid ski. You know, it's predictable, it's trustworthy, and it's a real ski. And for $450, there's a lot to say about that. And there are a lot of people that, you know, if you're like looking for something more fun than the beginner system skis that you've
Right.
been on, and you want to start skiing bumps and you want to start skiing off the trail and just exploring more and kind of like learning different sides of skiing, Mindbender 85 is fantastic, and you'll have so much more fun than, you know, for somebody with more of a creative or like adventurous mindset, you'll have way more fun on this than you would on like a Redster Q7.8.
Or a Core 87.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
there's a different skier for the Mindbender 85.
Yeah, it's for exploring
Yeah.
and learning
Yep.
the potential of what's out there. And who knows, maybe from this, then you'd move into a Mindbender 96C someday, which is a tremendous ski that
Yeah.
like expert skiers love and can do all sorts of different things. And it's like that you got to kind of think of this as like a stepping stone ski for a progressing skier, or as a value-oriented ski for like a recreational skier that wants something fun. And there's nothing wrong with any of those things.
It's
like,
a great first ski purchase.
yeah,
I've
or
been-
second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Been looking around for something.
Yeah,
and-
renting or like,
Yeah.
you know, you like those really kind of, I'll use the word cheap, like cheap beginner skis that are like $400 ski and binding.
Right.
That you're like, a lot of times those aren't that much fun. And
Right.
something like this is so much more fun. So $449, aspen wood core, 1,600 grams on our scale here. This is a 170, so they're pretty light. They're pretty easy to flick around. They're not stiff at all. You know, it's not like a noodle. It's not
Right.
like a Reckoner 102 is softer and costs a lot more money. So it's not like soft just means bad.
Right.
You know, it's kind of by design here. And then from a shaping perspective, it's just very well rounded. There's a good amount of tip rocker in this ski, a lot of tip rocker for a ski that's 85 underfoot. There's nice camber underfoot to go along with that vertical sidewall, so you are going to get some grip underfoot. there's a limit to it, but it's there. And then there's a nice amount of tail rocker too, so you're never gonna feel locked into a turn. Pretty easy to release the tail edge. You can make just about any style turn on this ski. You know, you can't do it going fast. You can't do it through 2 feet deep snow, but you can do a lot on a Mindbender 85. And for $450, I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and I think that the value is a big story here, and just the fact that you're getting a real ski.
Yeah. Not a composite core.
No.
It's a real ski.
Moving into a head core 87, and this is kind of a jump here in both performance and price from what we've talked about. Kind of the last of the really kind of the more demanding skis. This thing has a lot of potential, which is kind of what puts it on this side, but still, I mean, it carves better than a lot of skis here.
Probably might carve better than a Steadfast, or I don't know. This is right where I would start the
conversation.
To waffle.
Yeah, sure.
Like anything from here over,
not so much.
Blows it away.
Yeah.
But this around here, you could slot it in right there.
Same construction as we have had in years past. So Kariba wood core, 2 sheets of carbon, strip of graphene. Top carbon is curved, and that is creating a stiffer flex on this core 87. So the weight to flex ratio is off the charts here, 1,660 grams with a lot of stiffness to it. So with that blend of attributes, you're getting a very responsive and precise ski. It's not something that everyone loves at first ski.
Yeah.
But I think once you kind of settle in and learn the intricacies, you're able to get to a different level than a lot of other skis in this range. And this is kind of true for all cores, but certainly just within this wall, it just has an uncommon amount of energy and edge grip and a surprising amount of dampness and stability for how light it is.
Yeah.
That said, it does work better on higher edge angles. When you get this thing up on edge and really feel the flex combined with that carbon, you get an extraordinarily rewarding amount of grip and carving power. And then off trail, it just moves seamlessly through whatever you put it through because it's so easy to turn. It operates well in an off trail setting because of its weight, but there is still a lot of camber here and not a ton of rocker. A little bit spoonier of a tip shape. I think you mentioned spoony here in Dynastar. Not quite the same. It's a little bit more stance oriented in terms of taper and rocker, but more camber underfoot. So you can really load it up with energy and feel the combination of carbon and camber kind of push you right through the turn. And then tail, not a ton, but certainly enough. And this is one of those skis that if we play the what if game, if this were flatter, if it were less rockered, it would just be enormously uncomfortable. So by rockering the end of the ski here, they're allowing you to release from the turn. It just makes it easier in bumps and trees and other tight spots, more technical zones to get from one turn to the next. So this really opens up the ski's versatility. And then a short-ish turn radius, 16 meters, in this 177. And I've skied this ski in this length and was extraordinarily satisfied.
Yeah.
I think it's impressive how well these ski short.
Yep.
Because they're so stiff. But yeah, I think this is kind of an interesting move into that $699/$700 range where you're paying for the materials in this ski. That 2 layers of carbon, I mean, it's a different level of sophistication from a construction standpoint. So you're paying for it, but you're getting the resulting performance, and it's a very rewarding ski, especially at higher edge angles.
It is interesting to think about it being $50 more expensive than an Anomaly 84.
Yeah.
They're very different.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a good way or a bad way. It's just interesting because
Yeah.
all the materials are like vastly different.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting to like see how the costs add up.
Yeah.
And the performance is way different.
Yeah, I've again, this is one of those skis where the reality is greater than the expectation. If you kind of look at this on paper and you're like, yeah, light wood, carbon, no metal.
Right.
I'm not really expecting a whole lot, and then you get on it, and it is very impressive.
Yeah, I really appreciate its quickness.
Yeah.
And I find it is maybe the most playful core, or at least I kind of feel the most playful when I'm skiing it. I'd say like the 111 is also playful in a very different way, but yeah, it's one of my favorite cores. My favorite cores go 87, 105,
Okay,
111.
I thought you were going to jump to 111.
No, but I like the 111 more than I like the 105, and it's just interesting that I really enjoy skiing the 87 too.
Yeah.
What do we got next? Maverick
Maverick.
86C.
Yeah.
So this one's interesting. You know, what I was just thinking about, Bob, how when K2 came out with the Mindbender 96C, I felt like it gave a little more attention to the 90C. I don't think the same will happen because the Maverick 105 CTI does have a different mock-up, but maybe it'll give more attention to this ski because I feel like this ski, it gets overshadowed by the metal Mavericks as well as like bents.
Bent 90.
Like more people go and buy a bent 90 than a Maverick 86C. And while I certainly don't fault those people, I would say if you're a directional skier, there's certainly a chance that you would prefer this.
There might be more to like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So lightweight wood core in these skis, and then this ski has carbon backbone rather than the thin metal that we see in like the Maverick 88 Ti and the wider ones. It's very light, 1,588 grams. What length do I have here? 176. So pretty long ski. It's not like as soft as you might expect. Like there's some there's some supportiveness to the flex pattern for sure. And then the shape starts to lean more towards off trail in my opinion. This ski does still handle groomers just fine, but you'll see the shape kind of, it starts to feel more free ridey here. What ski was I just thinking about? So Stance, what's the price on Stance? $549. This is also $549. I would say the skis are pretty similar overall, but if your mindset leans more towards soft snow and off trail, that might be reason to go Maverick. So good amount of tip rocker up here, and then really like one of the keys to these skis is that they include Horizon Tech, so the kind of beveled finish to the base, which increases surface area and makes the ski a little bit more wiggly and a little bit more maneuverable in soft snow. It also increases float, which is pretty cool. And then relatively low camber underfoot, which combined with that softer flex means you can manipulate the ski pretty easily. And then a good amount of tail rocker back here with like kind of a pointy tail, like a good amount of taper to the finish of the tail there. So it never feels catchy behind you. And this tip with the Horizon Tech, it handles softer snow conditions so well, and it's so easy to turn the ski that you get like a really, really predictable, fun off-trail feel, in my opinion.
I mean, it's basically a bent 90 front.
With a flatter tail and some carbon.
And some carbon.
Yeah. So it's like a bent 120 build in a bent 90 shape with a flat tail.
Yeah.
And like, when you say it that way, it sounds really exciting.
Like, who wouldn't want it?
Right, exactly. But turns out a lot of people don't want it.
Well, that's because everyone thinks about it as an 88 Ti without metal.
Exactly.
Instead of...
Yeah. You got to think about it like in a different way.
Yeah.
Like it's not really fair to it to think about it like the 88 Ti. I think it's much more fair to think about it as an alternative to a bent 90.
Yeah.
So I think it's great.
Yeah, I've had my success on this ski has been in some of the shortest and quickest turns I think I've ever made in my life.
Right, and I think that's like a lot of that comes from that tail shape. It's just so easy to get it to snap back.
Yeah. like I can't turn physically quick enough.
Right. To keep up with the ski.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it's a great deal, and especially if you're in the right mindset. Yeah, interesting, also kind of dealing with, like we talked about at the beginning, the narrower versions of more free ride oriented skis. So your Maverick, like you were alluding to with the, I think that's from the sticker.
Yeah, have you noticed that there's like a bunch of stuff?
Yeah.
Sticker.
That's from their
residue.
Environmental sticker.
That with environmental friendly adhesive.
Yep.
That stays on your ski. No, it comes off.
But yeah, Ranger obviously, goes up to what, a 116.
Yeah, Mindbender goes up to 116.
Yep, Maverick goes up to 115 now.
Yep.
So these are descendants of the wider skis.
Yeah.
And so a lot of these, and we kind of have the same conversation here because they're all similarly priced here. Ranger 84, $599.99. That Blaze, I'll jump ahead, same price. But what you're looking at is skiers who are looking for more free ride oriented ski styles, but they don't want wider skis.
Or don't need,
Or don't need them.
Yeah.
You had talked about the adventure and exploration of a K2 Mindbender 85. I think that really continues into Ranger and Blaze
totally.
Next, where you're kind of really looking to expand your horizons in the ski world and get off of the groomers.
Yeah.
But you're still finding yourself on the groomers a lot. So something like this Ranger 84 is a perfect tool for the job. Like your Mindbender, Jeff, pretty simple construction here, just a poplar wood core. And that's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
But that one does get like vertical sidewalls throughout.
Yeah.
A little bit more torsional stiffness.
And a thicker core profile too. I don't know if you noticed that,
Yeah,
but
it's quite thick.
Quite thick. That's adding to the stiffness and the weight. 1,916 grams here and the 181. And yeah, quite a nice stiff flex here.
Yeah.
And then long camber profile as well. So this is kind of where you're seeing a departure from Ranger 84 versus 96, 102, 108, where these have just a more classic cambered profile. So some rocker, not a ton. Definitely borrows that taper shape from the wider skis, and we'll see that next in Blaze as well, where there's a lot of similarities in that footprint, just pared down to a narrower overall style.
It would be interesting if they put the shaped TI in that ski.
Right.
I mean, it would up the price. It would turn it into a whole different thing. But it would be like, interesting if you had a longer shaped TI than the 90.
Yeah.
Because then you'd like kind of be over an anomaly world, sort of.
Yeah.
Just be interesting.
I think that they would have to take the core thickness down a little bit
Yeah.
and do some other things to make that. I think if you put the metal in this thing as is, it'd
be a bit of a
be a handful.
Yeah.
But yeah, some tail rocker, not a ton, and some early taper as well, similar to what we saw in your Maverick there, where it's just a little bit easier to release from the turn.
Yeah.
But no, I think that this is a great example of a ski that that people that are exploring bumps, trees, softer snow, they just don't need a 90, a 96.
Yep.
Even you had mentioned a K2 Mindbender 96C.
Right.
Like just most people don't need a 96. You can prefer it.
Right.
And you can get it if you wish. But if you're kind of the thinking that, nope, I like to have my quickness and my agility and my torsional stiffness and edge grip, but I want the feel of kind of emerging free ride.
Yep.
This is a great place to be. Pretty cool from Fischer.
Yeah. I like calling skis exploration skis.
Yeah.
Adventure.
I think
Adventure
this,
and exploration.
I mean, I think this with its touring capability or, somewhat intent, I think.
Totally.
Right there.
Yeah, so this is the Volkl Blaze 86. It doesn't share all the same ingredients as the wider Blaze, but it does share a lot of them. It is a lightweight multi-layer wood core in this ski, We get those suspension tips and tails, the little rubber. I like that you can see them.
Yeah, I like it when you can see stuff in
Yeah,
skis.
like the top sheet's a little
Yeah.
translucent. We didn't play that game with the other Volkl over here, how you can see through the,
Right.
like, that's just, it's like nothing there. You can see my hand. Anyways, so lightweight wood core, those suspension tips and tails. The big thing in these skis is the shape. The 3D radius is 30 meters in the shovel, 16 underfoot, and 25 in the tail. So by a long shot, the longest turn radius figure that we've seen in that 30, and that is also paired with long rocker that we'll look at in a second here. Under 1,500 grams, and what length do we have here? 180. So very, very lightweight. It's stiffer than you might expect. It's certainly not a stiff ski, but it is, there's some amount of supportiveness to its flex, and I think that's important because when you look at the shape, this ski has just a crazy amount of tip rocker in length, and like that's the section that's like 30-meter turn radius. So it's rockered and just like straight, basically. Super low camber underfoot and not very long camber profile by any means. And then again, really long tail rocker with like kind of almost no splay, but long tail rocker and pretty straight back here. So it's like the antithesis to these skis over here. With wide tips and tails and not much rocker. This is supposed to be drifty and maneuverable and like really good in non-groomed formats. So if you're talking like getting off trail, like we've been talking about with these past few skis, this is something that like maybe you spend most of your time off trail. Like this is a great ski.
Like if you're kicking around the woods and like that's all you like to do.
Exactly.
Like, if you like to not be on the trail.
Right.
But you want like supreme agility.
Yeah.
Like
You'll love it.
Yeah.
So it's like a fantastic New England tree ski. You know, if like we get a decent amount of snow here in Stowe, but like growing up in Maine, I could have counted my total number of powder days as a kid on one hand.
Right.
But like I still love going in the trees and exploring and being adventurous, and a ski like that or like this just works super well for that application. And then like you said, Bob, a really affordable touring option.
Yep.
You know, $599 and pretty darn good performance and very lightweight. Slap a tech binding on here and save some money compared to a more expensive, more technology-based touring ski.
Right, like
and you're
loaded with
still going to have a
carbon.
really good time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot to like here. You've mentioned this a lot over the years talking about Blaze, but it was really funny kind of watching like people that work for Volkl and like the sales reps and how they all seem to shift from anytime we were like having a group ski day, they don't ski kendos and mantras anymore.
Even though they're supposed to.
Right, they all just ski these.
Yeah.
And I always think that's like just very telling.
Yeah.
They're like, oh no, I don't want to try hard today. I just
Right.
want to have fun. So I skied the Blaze 86. So if they're skiing it, then you can too.
Yeah. No, I think it's impressive.
Yeah, and a fun one to end on because we're ending in a very different world than where we started.
Yeah, Blaze 86 and Redster Q9.8 or Curve
Very
85 couldn't be more different for being on the same wall.
Yep. So that's it. That was fun.
Yeah, I like this category because there's
a lot going on.
A lot going on here.
Yeah.
And like a lot of people, like we've been saying, that aren't sure if they want to be on something this wide should take a second look.
Yeah, I agree.
Like the skis like a Dynastar M-Pro or a Stance 84 that may not be on your radar because there are earlier versions of those skis.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not the best choice.
Yeah, and we're gonna go narrower from here. We'll have two comparisons that are narrower than this, and those skis are really fun, but maybe you want a narrower ski, you want something more groomer focused, but you don't want to go like front side.
Right.
Then this is a great place to be.
Yeah.
And you know, I think like you and I haven't shied away from it, that we both we both own skis in this category, and we both really like them.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, most days.
Yeah.
If you're planning percentages,
Yep.
this is really a
work.
good place to be for around here.
Yep, it's going to work really well. Can't wait to break out my Mirus core.
Yay.
Yeah. So that's it. Let us know if you have any questions. We'll go narrower for the next ones, and we will talk to you soon.
Bye.